There we go. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining today's Ideas Showcase. We have three presentations from Matt from the Paul Center and Sarah J from Communities Count, and Anthony hopefully will be joining us from the Child Poverty Action Lab. But before that, we have, I know, a bit to get through. So Kathy, I'll turn over to you. And I can go ahead and start sharing my screen.
Great.
For the slides.
Oh, Cole made it sound like punishment about things to get through. So hopefully it'll be better. We're actually very excited about sharing things, a little preview with you. And Leah and I have been deep in strategic planning with the strategic planning committee. I don't know if any of the members are on today, but trying to make the transition from coming up with a working version of the strategic planning and moving into the action and implementation and how to do things differently stage. What we have, one of the things we learned was it's always helpful to start with our why as we talk through the different data sources and technical pieces and project specific things. Go on.
Sorry.
Go back. That's all right. And this has been vetted over the last few months across different groups, just to focus on leading with neighborhoods as a way to differentiate our network from other more people-focused vision statements without the sense of place. And these values also have been sort of road tested through a bunch of different pieces. And Amanda is here, I think Joe, and had a really good conversation with a group of people to get some feedback on these four main topics that Leah's been working on. We have some text that explains them afterwards, but we're excited to be able to have this sort of in a tight place to communicate who we are to both external folks and to potential new partners also. So this is really, we're trying to always just come back to these as a touchstone with whatever actions we're trying to do. Next. So I think a lot of the focus the last few years has been, urban, helping to collect the peer learning network to strengthen the local work that you guys are all doing. And then through your local work, good things happen, better things happen in your cities. And what the big takeaway from the strategic plan is our really excitement about leveraging the collective knowledge that we have. Both, I listed all those things, sort of both the sort of technical expertise, topical expertise, knowledge of your communities, real life examples of what you've done and advice you'd give others to share with other national groups and networks like United Way of America and LISC and the Promise Neighborhood Network and many, many others that we need to choose from so that they can share it with their local members and through their connectors. And the national groups also includes the federal agencies that we're connecting with. And then so that we have impact both on NNIP cities and on other places can benefit from the richness of our experiences and both across really different kinds of places and across the decades that we've been working. Next. Okay, I couldn't figure out this image too much, so we're working with our comm folks on all this on new graphics for everything. But the three goals at the really high level is the first one is really promoting the investment in community data capacity, promoting the values, sort of how people use data, and sharing those, both increasing that from the national level and from local government and philanthropic sources. The second one is more on the replication. So the first one is more on sort of what we think of as like a diffusion and really focused on the values in particular. The second one is more about replication. Like if Cheryl's done an amazing analysis of small area fair market rents in Baltimore. We think other people should do this analysis and work to, influence their housing authority and to try to get more of where the rubber hits the road on the policy and practice side. And that could be both government policy, but it could also be how your community foundation thinks about investing or different nonprofit actors if they have good practices that are there to share, to move to other places. And then the third is the foundation of everything, the stronger and expanded network, which means both sharing more time, spending more time making sure that you all have the help that you need and anything that we can provide, and providing more spaces for you to talk to each other, doing more cross-site projects, and then also to improve our approach to reaching out to new cities, and both the materials we provide, that process of finding new partners to expand the network to other organizations that may already be doing the work, but in any case that share sort of the values and the model and the quality and local embeddedness that we have. And then the dark blue turquoise boxes are the strategies that cross all of them. That's expanding the back and forth and engagement from urban to you all and amongst you all, making sure that we are leveraging all the amazing research and assets at the Urban Institute, upgrading our infrastructure, which is some of that's people, some of that's communications, some of that's knowledge management. This is the fourth one is about visibility, getting that outreach about who we are and what we have to offer, and also to begin the exchange to learn from other groups, and then finally to resource the plan with diversified funding. Many of you will have gotten the very good news about our new Robert Wood Johnson grant that just came through earlier this month, which will allow us to get a big jump start on a bunch of things we want to do, but it's not going to cover all of our ambitions. So we want to find supporters for those. Next. One of the things that we want to do is do some quick pilots of different types of supports to see about interest and how different configurations work. And Jake Cowan, who I don't think is here, but is a good friend, NNIP alumni, offered to run a quick impact fellowship. So this is really sort of a cohort support from Jake to create an impact story that we hope that would be beneficial to share with your local stakeholders and identify lessons for us on project and activities, and maybe even be the basis for your NNIP award application, which will be happening usually, I think, January, February timeframe. So we encourage you to look at that. We sent this out to the business list, which we realized we probably haven't cleaned up in a while, but even though it was sent to just some individual folks, all staff are welcome to participate. So please let Jake know or there's a little quick form that you can say sort of who you are and why you're interested by September 8th. Next. Quick reminder to complete your surveys. So thank you for all of you who have submitted them. We got late in a couple of them, so we were recognized that we were doing multiple data collection streams at once, and apologize for that. The deadlines are set so we can really share the analysis and have those findings for the NNIP meeting in Oakland where we present them. One is the annual data inventory. That deadline has passed, but it's never too late to avoid another friendly email from me and Cole. And that's even more important this year as we are using it to really identify cross-site project opportunities, who has what data, and also make peer connections. Like if one person has evictions data, maybe they can help someone else who just got access to it, as you'll hear some great stories from that in Indianapolis. And then the second one is a diversity survey, which we did about 5 years ago to understand the composition of the staff and boards and just your perceptions of the barriers or facilitators of increasing all kinds of diversity in your organizations as a way to strengthen our work. So we really appreciate that also. And if you have any struggles with either of these, please let us know and we will help you follow up. We have office hours tomorrow. It's not too late. There's still openings available if you want to share any good news or introduce a new staff person or share ideas about the strategic framework. We have the webinar on Tuesday at 3 p.m. where we're going to share some of our priority actions, present the whole strategic framework together, and just talk about the coming, particularly the coming fall, but the coming year. And then there's a partners meeting in Oakland. I don't know if any of those, Rania is here or Maya, but we've been busy planning these sessions on Black wealth, on housing justice and youth engagement, but we'll be soon sending out asks for volunteers for the idea showcases and for the camp sessions. So you can watch out for those in the next couple of, well, definitely next month. I think we're almost done with the month. And now I'll turn it over to Cole.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. So is Anthony in the Zoom? I hadn't had a chance to.
I am. I'm here now.
Okay, great. So yes, as I mentioned at the start, we have 3 presenters today. And in the interest of time, I think we'll go ahead and get to our first presenter, Sarah J. Sanford from Communities Count. And she'll be talking about a health equity timeline for King County that her team created recently. So I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Anthony. Let me just get my slides. Can folks see a slide that says Communities Count? Awesome. Well, to briefly introduce myself, my name is Sarah J. Sanford. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an epidemiologist.
We're seeing the presenter view, I think.
Oh, okay.
And your email.
And your email. Yeah.
Stop. Can see that I'm literally was in the process of asking my colleague about the impact story, so maybe you'll get a response from me on that. Let's see. How about this? Does this look better?
Yes, excellent. I'm so excited to share this with folks.
Awesome. Thank you for your patience on that. All right, so Communities Count is based in Seattle. We serve all of King County, which, to kind of briefly describe it for those who might not know it, is a community of over 2.25 million people. We're larger in population and quite a few states and larger in geography than my dear friends in places like Rhode Island and Delaware as well. So we're local, but we have a pretty large and diverse community that we serve. And I'm going to share today a project that we published earlier this year that I'm super excited for and proud of our work on, which is our health equity timeline. So I'm sure that we are not alone in this situation where we present data on many different indicators across what we would consider social determinants of health, or things like education, built environment, economic security, as well as some more typical health things. And across so many of those indicators, we see the same inequities repeated over and over again. And part of our vision for our data equity practices is that we provide context to support the interpretation of those inequities that focuses on the systemic causes and doesn't pathologize communities who experience marginalization. So in other words, we see all these inequities, but why? We decided to put together a health equity timeline to kind of dig more deeply into that why than we do on each individual indicator page on communities count. So we knew that a comprehensive story of health inequity, even limited just to our county, would be way too big of a project to take on, but we wanted to do something anyway. So we thought a starting point is a lot better than nothing. So it's not comprehensive, but there is a lot of cool stuff in there. So I'm going to share some of the principles that we used and some of the ways we enacted those as well. So we wanted the timeline to be locally relevant. We included, as you'll see in this example, both bigger dynamics that have had huge impacts here, like the beginning of colonization did not happen solely in King County, but we felt we couldn't tell the story of health inequities here without it. We also really wanted to include local events and stories as well. I've lived in the Northwest myself for about 14 years and grew up in the DC area, which has a very different history. And I was a little bit surprised to come to the Northwest and find a bit of an attitude that like racism happened in the South, civil rights happened in the South. That's something they deal with over there. But indeed, it's a huge part of our history here. And we really wanted to spotlight that in our timeline. So we have events that range from the local to the international, but that had big resonance locally. We also wanted to be strengths-based. While there's a long history of policies that have harmed communities, particularly communities of color, there's also been a huge history of communities working for their own health and well-being. So we wanted to include that side of the story as well. We wanted, again, knowing that we could never be comprehensive, to include many communities. So if you explore the health equity timeline, you'll see that while we center BIPOC folks, there's lots of communities represented there, Jewish communities in Seattle, LGBTQ communities, and here you see one of the events that we have that actually spotlights cross-racial organizing, which has a deep history in the Seattle area as well. So when it came time to put together the timeline, we really wanted it to be visually engaging. That was one of my top concerns going into the project, was like, okay, we can get this cool content together, but how would it be enticing to a user? And our team found some amazing historical images that we have for every single one of the approximately 80 events that are currently part of the timeline. It spans, I would say actually, like for the Northwest, pre-colonization all the way through events as recent as this year. They're certainly not evenly distributed, but we wanted to take a long view and make it a living document as well. So we hope to continue building on it as we get community feedback. So over this timeline, we structured it by thinking about 5 different key social determinants of health. And you can navigate the timeline both chronologically, or there's a way you can kind of focus on just one set of determinants of health as well. And I'm going to just give a brief example of each of those 5 determinants. So one is neighborhood and built environment. If you've ever been to Seattle, or if you ever get a chance to visit Seattle, I would highly recommend visiting Discovery Park. This used to be a military installation known as Fort Lawton, and it was occupied by leaders of the American Indian movement in the 70s until they actually kind of won, I guess, for lack of a better word, won the right to reoccupy that land, and agreed to give it to the city of Seattle as a public park with space for a cultural center. And that's one of many stories that I feel like ties deeply into the work we do with neighborhood level data as NNIP partners. The next one, healthcare access. This is again one of our strengths-based items that we had. There was a hospital founded by the Japanese community that actually served many communities of color that were not served by the white-led hospitals at the time. Social and community context. This is kind of broad, but includes lots of political events, things like leadership, our first city and county council members of color in this area. The example here is the first Pride Week, which actually happened in 1974. Education, and then finally, economic stability. So I hope that seeing a few of these examples of images and headlines encourages you to poke around and check it out. I felt like I knew a lot of local history, like I had been, putting intentional effort in learning local history over 15 years in the area, but I learned so much through this process. And again, knowing that it's just a starting point, we wanted to share resources for folks to dig deeper. I want to really call out 4 students who spent between the 4 of them over 2 years working on this project: Wendy Castillo, Cassidy Chang, Isis Garcia, and Kristen Hong. And then because I knew this crowd would have some curiosity about our technical approach in the back end, I also wanted to be sure and share that we used an open source software called Timeline.js. And it hasn't been perfect for us. There's some like usability feedback we've gotten that we're not really able to implement using Timeline.js, but it's free and it's going to be easy for us to maintain, and it meets the basic functionalities. So we're pretty happy with that as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to you, Cole, for the next presenter, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah J. I think you're definitely right that there's a lot of inequities no matter where you talk about in the US. So I'm really glad that you all created that. It's very helpful. So Kathy, are we going to do questions now or just go ahead to the next presentation? And
since we have a bad history of running out of time, why don't we have people put questions in the chat and then go through the presentations and then come back?
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so our next presentation is Matt Diedrich from the Paulus Center, and he'll be talking about their process of creating an evictions dashboard.
Thanks so much. Yeah, Matt Dietrich here from the Paulus Center, here with my colleagues, Ali Scott, research data analyst, and Mark Micalevi, community analysis program manager. And I'm just going to give a quick overview of the context behind this, and then my colleague Ali is going to kind of walk us through, screen share, and kind of show this dashboard that we've been kind of working on and implementing here for actually the whole state of Indiana, which is pretty exciting. So to provide some context, we were commissioned through partnership with New America to kind of develop and implement a more interactive and sophisticated dashboard of openly available data that showcases evictions and foreclosures throughout the whole state of Indiana, kind of a step beyond the Eviction Lab dashboard, if any of you are familiar with that work, where they basically showcase just eviction filings. It's a really great resource, but they're hoping to have someone dive in a little bit deeper and connect kind of resources across the state. So with that being said, we've actually just a couple weeks ago got access to 3 years of eviction and foreclosure data from the Indiana State Supreme Court. I think it's like, what is it, Ali, 200-something thousand court cases or something like that over 3 years, with an agreement to get basically monthly updates, at least through the end of the year, kind of piped in directly from the state Supreme Court service, so that we can update kind of continuously on this dashboard. So with that being said, we're gonna kind of, Ali's gonna share a screen and just kind of walk through what I guess we would call like an alpha wireframe. We haven't, we're still going and sifting through all that data we just got before putting it into like the actual dashboard, but we have some placeholder data in there from Eviction Lab, and we're just excited to kind of showcase what we've started putting together and to show you all kind of what direction we're going with this project, so that ultimately the goal is to have a publicly available resource where people can kind of go through, download, and better understand evictions and socioeconomic and demographic data that might be related to the evictions and foreclosures. So with that being said, Allie, would you take it away, and feel free to start running through it.
All right, cool. Thank you so much, Matt. So this is our dashboard, and before we walk through it, this is a very beta version, so there's going to be still a lot of blank spaces, and we're kind of still trying to figure out the layout. So just keep that in mind. So to begin, we have a homepage, which again talks about who sponsored it, who we worked with, and just kind of going through explaining what it is. And if you go to the first tab, I guess the second tab, it's the eviction and foreclosure overview. So with this, you can kind of go through a timeline of the whole state of Indiana and just kind of see when on the timeline, like where in Indiana the evictions are happening, where it's more prominent, and when it happened, like on the timeline. And if you go to this one, it's a little bit more of a deep dive, and you can kind of see a little bit more information related to it. You can kind of filter and see who has done more evictions with apartments or LLCs, and then you can go through here and filter through the graphs and kind of see just more information related to that kind of stuff. With this, this is more, you could do more demographics with this. And the foreclosure and eviction analysis tool called FEAT is an open source data tool, which is linked right here, so that you can use that more if you want. In this part, a lot of the user feedback, they really wanted real stories related to evictions so that we can kind of, humanize the data. So with that in mind, we were able to create this and be able to pull in stories from different places throughout the state. And you can click on the story, which will take you kind of to a broad area of where it happened, and you can read through it. You can kind of click through other stories, which we thought was a really interesting addition. And then lastly, there's the resources page where people can kind of go through and see kind of like options they may have, or if you want to go deeper into the information. So yeah, that is our dashboard that we are working on.
And I'll add too, with this piece, something we basically, to kind of get to this point of at least like, this rough wireframe, we met with a lot of different community stakeholders throughout the state of Indiana, ranging from nonprofit individuals, individuals that work for nonprofits in Indianapolis, to judges from up in Fort Wayne, to lawyers, and to get kind of their input and perspective as to like what types of information might be the most useful, both for policymakers, people trying to instill change at local and state level in regards to policy, as well as community organizations and individuals who are actually dealing with evictions on a day-to-day. And something that we're planning to hopefully do with those eviction stories is actually get, like Allie mentioned, real stories from people that have gone through this process, and then also embed data basically from one of those first tabs of showcasing like the eviction data underneath, like where these people are actually evicted, to kind of make sure that people realize that, like, these aren't just, the data is more than just like a number. It's tied to real life experiences that can really strongly affect people's livelihoods and really cause a big shift in their lives. So that's kind of the impetus for that, because a lot of people that we talked with were like, well, the numbers and data are great, but people are more than just numbers, and adding that qualitative information as well can maybe add some context to the importance behind this. So just wanted to add that piece in there too, that we did get a lot of great feedback early on before we even started constructing anything. And that fee output that Allie went through is it's called the foreclosure eviction analysis tool. That there's a beta version up that will be public, I think in a few months, where you can literally input any type of eviction data from any state, and it'll geolocate that, like census tracts, combine that with demographic data. And the hope is for this webpage to essentially run that feed tool within this and kind of output the results from that on our actual webpage. So it has like the eviction filings, like Allie has in the top corner of her screen, but like demographic data as well, like percentage population by race, things like percentage poverty as well, so that individuals can see what other important characteristics might be associated with eviction hotspots to get more of a holistic idea of what's happening in an area. And again, this is throughout like the whole state of Indiana, which is something that it's an endeavor, but we're excited that we've made some good progress with that data. So yeah, Allie or Mark, anything else to add to that?
Nope.
I mean, the only thing I would add is, just to reiterate sort of what you're saying, Matt, which is that what's exciting to me about this eviction dashboard is because of the engagement that existed at the beginning and the design of it, folks are already planning on how they plan on using it for policy advancement and, practice implications, which is just kind of refreshing, I think. But great job, Allie.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you to Matt, Ali, and Mark for that presentation. We're glad to hear that you are mixing quantitative and qualitative information for this. I think it's, especially with evictions, it's important to have more than numbers. But yeah, it's really great to hear about. So yeah, as a reminder, everyone can keep putting any questions you have in the chat, but we'll go ahead and give it over to Anthony for his presentation.
All right, I'm really glad to discover that you were muted because I was worried my audio went out right before I was going to have to go on. So my name is Anthony Galvan. I work at the Child Poverty Action Lab in Dallas. And some of you might remember me from when I was at the Dallas Partner at the Institute for Urban Policy Research. I've been here at CPAL for about a year. And I am going to present on an internal website that we've created here at CPAL that kind of manages the outputs of the data team. And so we kind of, when I started, like I think a lot of folks, we use a lot of tools and kind of do a lot of things on the fly. And so there's a lot of using Excel for this and R for that, and using a lot of tools. And sometimes we're using Tableau, and sometimes we're using ArcGIS, and sometimes and all of that. And so one of the things that I wanted to do when I sort of took over the data team was streamline everything and make everything kind of one thing. We're going to have a vision. And part of that is about one of our priorities right now as an organization is basically to make us all replaceable. Any one of us could be hit by a bus on any particular day, and we want to make sure that the work can continue when we're gone. And so I know that's kind of morbid, but that's just the reality. So anyway, this is like our internal directory, and the page that I have open here is our template page. So one of the things that's kind of my priority is obviously I don't have PowerPoint for this, but there are certainly times when using slides makes sense. But one of the things I really dislike is reports that are presented in slide format. And what I wanted to do was really create sort of a set of expectations for our team. So the data team here at CPAL, we sort of if you think about it like NNIP, I sort of think of our data team as a data intermediary inside our organization. We're sort of like a closed ecosystem, and we're an internal facing service provider, and our customers are the program leads inside of our organization. And so what I want to do is make sure that they kind of know what they're going to get from us when they need something. What is the data team going to provide to them? And so we started templating out, and we really decided that we were going to stick to R for basically everything we do right now. We do have a plan eventually to sort of expand and transition to Python, but right now we're focusing on R because that's where we had proficiency and where we saw some opportunities. So the basic thing is that if you ask us for data, for a data report, you're going to get it in one of a handful of ways. A static web report using Quarto, which we used to know as R Markdown, if you're familiar. And basically this website is that, right? Then we have the interactive version. So that's very similar, except that you can sort of change things on this graph. And then we have a Shiny dashboard. So that would be an internally created dashboard using our Shiny. This is just a screenshot of one, and I can share one in a little bit that we've worked on. This is a screenshot of our internal dashboard so that our program leads can kind of know when they have questions about how many kids in poverty live in this zip code or that zip code, and that they don't have to ask us those questions. They don't have to go to Fact Finder to find those questions. They can pull up a map, they can click on a zip code and get the answer. And then we have this iterated fact sheets, which is similar to this page, but it's sort of like, if you want to create a report for every school in a school district, you kind of pick your indicators, you pick your school district, you click go, and sort of the same one pager gets created for every single school, just as an example. And so those are, and then there's another one which isn't included on here, which is just when we provide data support for an external tool. So if we kind of move to we have this directory page. And so this is also, again, this is kind of internally, this piece of it is internally facing mostly for our program leads, or we call them pillars. And so we've got an icon key. This is the pillar. This is the update cadence. This is the audience. This is the product type. And then we have the list. They're organized by year. And then you can see what kind they are. But some of them are not internally built. They're internally supported. They're external tools. So we may have engaged a vendor to create a website, and we provide, the data support. And I'll show a couple of those in a second, some examples of each. So that's kind of, there's this piece of it, there's one piece of it internally that functions as a menu, and then there's a piece of it that functions for the data team itself. So this, again, this is great for really anyone on the team that just wants to know, I need information about, publicly owned land. Oh yeah, we have this tool. Let me go find it. And that might be one of our pillar leads, and it might be me on the data team as I'm supporting somebody putting together something for a funder. But then we have this on the tools page. This is sort of like an onboarding piece. So this is not just internal to CPAL, but internal to our team. And so this is like, these are the programs we use. This is how you install R and R Studio, but these are all the packages we use. So if you're going to if you're going to create something for CPAL, if you're going to, make edits to anything that we're working on, you're going to need these packages. This is what they do. And then these are our custom packages that have, functions that we've created specifically for us, including templates. And I can share our GitHub for this page and for all of our tools. And the great thing about the templates page, I don't know if I have that open, but I'll also share where we kind of, we forked it from an urban repository, actually, right? So, and we, changed it, we styled it, but ultimately what we love about it is you can kind of just say, make report, and then it just compiles all the files you need to make a website just like this. And so the starting point is really, really simple. And so, just bringing somebody on the team who has some experience in R and then bringing them up to speed on how to build something like this is pretty quick. As long as they have that underlying R skill, even if their experience with R is mainly focused on, data analysis or whatever, it really just requires them to have some coding knowledge. And frankly, even if they don't know R, learning it can be pretty straightforward. So this is kind of the internal for the data team piece. Then we have the, the visualizations page. So this functions as both sides, both a menu for our pillar leads, so they can come through. So they might come to me and say, Anthony, we need to visualize, evictions for by school, enrollment zone. And then they're trying to think through, do I want this to be a dashboard? Is this a report, right? What's the product? And so we kind of sit down and talk about what's the use case, what do you need? And then they can come here and they can look at the different visualizations we can do. So this is kind of a menu. They can kind of think about, oh, I have this type of data. It would look good as a bar chart or a line graph. We also, there are some things not on here like radar charts and, okay, we can have a map, we have a flow chart, right? And then for the data team, we actually have code snippets here too. So then for a member of the data team who joins, we're onboarding them, and they're building, they've been asked to build a dashboard for somebody. They can come to this page and here's the code snippet to make this map, right? Here's the code snippet to make this graph in, using our template and using our styling, right? And obviously they'll have to change, the variable names and those types of things. But the point is that we sort of are serving two populations by providing the code snippet, but also showing examples of the things that, and everything is modular. So of course, this graph can appear in a web report, it can appear in a dashboard, method they want. And then if there's anything that's not on here that they want, obviously we'll sort of run that down. Come back to the directory real quick. I got a couple of minutes, so I'll just show you a couple of examples. I think if I switch tabs, can you still see? Like if I switch tabs, can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah, all right, awesome. So this is not one that we built. So this is an external tool that we support. So this is our eviction dashboard, the North Texas Eviction Project. You can visit it at northtexasevictions.org. And so we hired an external developer to develop this, but we support this on the data end. So this is one where every single day we get eviction filings from the county, and we have an R script that processes that data every day, uploads it to our Amazon Web Services, and this website pulls that data every day. So we update it every day, it gets updated here every day. And so this is one where we didn't build the site, but we support it on the data side. So our directory doesn't really cover this as a piece, right? But in terms of things that we create, but these projects are listed, so it's in here as North Texas Eviction Project. Then we have, so this is an example of a dashboard so that we did in Shiny. So this is let's see if it'll load, timed out. So this is the one I was referencing. So this is evictions by school enrollment zone. And this is something that we provide for our school district, and we're actually combining it with some of their mid-year movers data. But basically, you can come over here, you choose, the school, and then the map should update. Come on. And so then the map updates, it shows you the school zone, and then we have eviction filings over by year, we have it over time, and then we have some demographic information about the enrollment zone. And so this was and this is a thing that, we can put these together fairly quickly because we have these templates. And so building that first one took a little bit of effort, but now somebody wants a dashboard like this and we can put it together in, a day. And we really like it over something like Tableau. We just feel like it's a lot more accessible. And then finally, this one's not final, so I can't share this. There's a lot, you'll actually see there's a lot of stuff going on here that's clearly not finished, but this is the web report. So this is, man, everything I presented is about evictions. That's actually a coincidence. So this is, in addition to, tracking eviction filings, we also, do court observation in the courts, because one of the things we don't have is we don't have a case disposition. And so we produce this report every quarter, and we are transitioning it to an automated report that we run in R. And so like I said, this one's not, it still has some things that aren't working correctly, and like this flow chart is too small, but a lot of these things that you'll see that are in bold this is dynamic text. So every quarter when the data gets updated, like these numbers will change in addition to the graphs changing. So the idea is we build this report once, and every quarter when the data updates, the report updates itself. We don't have to go back to the graphic designer. We don't have to we don't write anything again. It's really one report that updates itself when the data updates. And then I just want to highlight one insight, because I love this insight, and we're presenting it next week, is down here, which shows that when a defendant, when a tenant in an eviction case is not represented, the court rules in favor of the landlord 69% of the time. And when the tenant has an attorney, it's only 7% of the time. So representation really matters. And this is the insight that led to one of our actions, which is to connect people with legal aid services. And so one of the things that we do, in addition to supporting this dashboard, is we actually provide a list of, we have the record level list of eviction filings on a weekly basis that we provide to legal aid organizations, so that they can send out postcards and make phone calls and actually reach out to tenants who are experiencing eviction and represent them, because we know that it makes a huge difference about whether or not someone is represented. And everything is in our GitHub repo, and I can share that link with Kathy. I can share it in the chat. And then I also the GitHub, the original repo that we forked from Urban, anything you want. And I'm happy to talk about like everything that we do because I think it's awesome. And anyway, I will stop now because I think my timer just went off.
Anthony, I think some people might have been a little intimidated, but can you give some encouragement to get started, or how long it took you to just slowly get organized?
Yeah, so I would say it's funny. I presented this to the board back in June, and I think the CEO said something about how, you know, Anthony and then our CEO joined, and like over the course of that year, we kind of whatever timeline we did this in 3 months. I think it is, if you have the R skills, it's very doable. Like I said, whether you fork it from the original Urban repo or from ours, it's really just about like changing style sheets, changing, you know, popping in your logo and those kinds of things. But if you are familiar with you know, Plotly and ggplot and Leaflet and using those things in R, this is all pretty straightforward. It's just a way to kind of package it together, and it's very actually, if I come back here, let's see, in templates, you can see like some of the, like when you get started, I mean, it's like right here, you're like construct, and it will, or yeah, construct Shiny, right? And then it just compiles all of the files you need in a directory where they're supposed to be. And then it's just very easy to kind of update those things with, you know, your variable names and that stuff. Like I said, most of the work was not done by me. It was done by my now director, at that time manager of data analytics, Michael Lopez. But he, I mean, I would say he was, you know, probably our primary, like our programmer at the time. And you know, I mean, really, just if you have a fairly strong, you know, analyst type, you know, who's strong in R, this is, I think, really pretty straightforward, especially if you've done any kind of like GitHub forking before.
Fantastic. We'll make sure the links get out. I
Yep.
had a question for Sarah J too.
Thanks, Kathy. I've gotten really positive feedback from this. I feel like if I were to generalize from community partners, they have been, I think they have seen the health equity timeline as a important way that we are recognizing the impact of these things, and that we're not just saying, here's the data, but really acknowledging that history is meaningful to them. And then actually internally across different parts of the health department, I've heard a lot of positive feedback as well. I've heard folks using it to onboard new employees as part of like their background learning about King County communities. I actually had a meeting with the clinical leaders. We're one of a dwindling number of health departments that still does provide primary care safety net services. And so they wanted a training focused on the health equity timeline and some other resources to help them ground their clinical practice in community context in an equity focused way. So it's been really positive feedback so far.
Annika has a question too from Milwaukee.
Yeah, that is a really good question. Danica, I'm curious to see how it goes, because so far our only criteria has been somebody reached out and suggested that we add something, which hasn't happened too frequently, nor have any of the requests been anything that we felt a little bit like uncomfortable about. Like nobody's, you know, asked us to add any weird conspiracy theory stuff. And we haven't gotten a lot of requests. So we may come to a point where we need to codify our criteria for adding events, but so far we've just gotten a couple ideas and we thought they were great additions. So
luckily you took care of like 600 years. Just incrementally adding.
Okay, we have a few minutes left. Does anyone have any other questions for any of our presenters? You can feel free to type them in the chat or just ask them verbally.
Matt and Ali, have you guys, I know you just got the data, so you're probably in the wallowing stage. But have you thought ahead or with your stakeholders about your release? Like, how are you going to have an event? Is it like how, I mean, trying to get to all your people, the whole state. I don't know, having a panel with lived experience folks talk about it while you release. I don't know. There's all kinds of exciting things you could do. Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, great question, Kathy. Yeah, so well, we're actually planning kind of 2 already events on the calendar that we have in partner. So at the Polis Center, we have this informatics system like Savvy, which kind of showcases a lot of different community health informatics and data. And we have an event kind of on October 5th, like it's called Data and Drafts, which is like an informal public event where there's beer, snacks, and we kind of present data and information to the public to ask for feedback questions, kind of have more of a discussion. And we're going to present like a beta version, I guess, of the dashboard then. That's more focused though in Marion County. We have like a statewide kind of larger launch event planned for December as part of our we call them Savvy Talks. And this will be like a webinar type format where we plan on having panelists that have different experiences and expertise in the evictions, either the research end, the policy side, or the like kind of community actual engaging with these folks piece with where that'll be like hopefully advertised statewide through different channels and partnerships where we'll get to kind of launch the app and kind of publicize it. And along the way too, we're going to stay engaged with the people that gave us feedback early on to get their take on like, oh, like, what have you actually done with the dashboard? Like, did you do what like we said early on, and get some more feedback through them directly so that they feel like they were heard not just at the beginning, but like throughout the process. So yeah, and feel free, Mark or Ali, to add to that.
I got nothing else to add. Thanks, Matt.
Oh, and looks in the chat. So we don't have a public link yet to share. That's still kind of internal. We can't, but as soon as we do, we'll of course share it to everyone. Once we probably by like October 5th, we should have at least a publicly available like beta link that we can circulate. So happy to share that once available. But yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Okay, we're about out of time. So I want to thank all 3 of our presenters. Those were really great presentations. Really appreciate it. Thank everyone else for attending today. I will send the slides and any relevant links along with the recording to post to the partners Google group after this. All right.
What a great good diversity of the beauty of NNIP crunching into the history and the data and the back end. It was not intentional, but a good combo.
Definitely. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Sign up for Tuesday.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.